The complexities of human nature and the consequences of abuse, neglect, and moral decay. This story aims to underscore the transformative power of compassion and the importance of a nurturing environment in shaping an individual's life. On a scorching summer day, August 23, 1936, in the small, rural town of Blacksburg, Virginia, a child was born into hardship. Henry Lee Lucas, the youngest of 8 siblings, knew from an early age that life would be an uphill battle. The Lucas family was dirt poor, crammed into a single-room house where privacy was a luxury they couldn't afford. Henry's childhood was a relentless nightmare. With both parents deep in the clutches of alcoholism, young Henry was subjected to unimaginable abuse. His father, Anderson, rendered helpless after a tragic accident, turned to bootlegging to make ends meet. But it was his mother, Viola, who left an indelible scar. Viola's cruelty knew no bounds. She forced Henry to dress in girls' clothes, prostituted him, and made him witness her unsavory liaisons. Following an accident, his father underwent double lower amputation. It's possible his father was the breadwinner, and since becoming crippled and unable to work, forced his mother with no other source of income into prostitution. Anderson would take to bootlegging, which is the illegal manufacture of alcohol. Both his parents were alcoholics, and it's said they both abused Henry as a child and made him drink alcohol. Anderson would later die from pneumonia as a result of passing out intoxicated and falling asleep outside during very cold weather. His mother continued to work as a prostitute to support herself and her kids. She was also very mean to Henry. She would make young Lucas watch her with her clients, and she would beat him if he refused. It said Viola dressed her child in girls' clothing and pimped him out to men with perverse interests. During his childhood, Lucas suffered severe abuse at the hand of his mother, and when he was just 8, he was beaten so severely in the head he was in a coma. At 10 years old, one of his brothers stabbed him in the eye while they were fighting. This serious injury was ignored by his mother until it became infected. He would later lose the eye when it ruptured, and he was given an artificial eye. His early childhood was plagued with so much misery that Lucas would grow to become isolated both by his peers and his own family who were supposed to love and care for him. In his very own words, he hated all of his life. Desperation led Henry to flee his abusive home, but the shadows of his past followed him. Drifting through small towns, he engaged in petty thefts and fell in with the wrong crowd. The seeds of his future crimes were sown during these dark days of his adolescence, as he committed heinous acts against animals, a chilling precursor to what was to come. This he was led into by some of his relatives. Henry had admitted to the police that he killed his mother because she told him to come and live with her and take care of her in her old age, and that they'd argued. In 1960, a confrontation with his mother turned deadly. In a fit of rage, Henry stabbed Viola in the neck, ending her life in his torment. This gruesome act would be the first of many. Fleeing the scene, Henry's trail of blood began, but his capture in Michigan brought a temporary halt to his killing spree. Sentenced to 40 years for second-degree murder, Henry's life behind bars was tumultuous. Transferred to a state hospital in Iowa for suicidal behavior, he underwent brutal shock treatments. After serving only 10 years, he was released, but the world outside had not changed for him, only his methods. This was the days of shock treatment and heavy drugging. However, while on probation, he is arrested for assault of a minor, and while in prison, he begins a long-distance relationship with Betty Crawford, whom he would later get married to in 1975. Despite his dark past, Henry found moments of normalcy. In 1975, he married Betty Crawford, but his demons followed him. While married to Betty, Henry found work on a mushroom farm. However, the marriage dissolved in 1977 when Betty discovered his disturbing behavior towards her daughters. Henry's life spiraled further into the abyss when he met Ottis Toole, a kindred spirit in crime. He would move on from here to Jacksonville, Florida, and wound up at a soup kitchen and began a relationship with a cross-dresser named Otis Elwood O'Toole. Ottis was 11 years younger and had a similar upbringing to Henry in that his parents and family abused him because he was gay. His mother was a religious fanatic and his grandmother was a Satanist. He had learning difficulties and he ran away from home. Ottis began his journey as an arsonist. The two moved in together and worked for a roofing company. Between 1976 and 1981, they were a nefarious duo, murdering people everywhere they went. They had no particular MO. Their M.O. was anything goes. They boasted of using all kinds of ways to kill people, including crucifixion, stabbing, shooting, to name a few. They also ate some of their victims. While on the run, Henry is arrested in June of 1983 for unlawful possession of a firearm. This is when he let the cat out of the bag and spilled how he'd been on a murderous 10-year spree. Together, Henry and Ottis embarked on a terrifying crime spree across America. Their methods were varied, their motives unclear, leaving a trail of bodies in their wake. The duo's partnership was a deadly alliance, with each murder more gruesome than the last. Henry Lee Lucas, once in police custody, began to confess to an astonishing number of murders, claiming he had taken the lives of hundreds. These confessions earned him the moniker the Confession Killer. His detailed accounts, delivered with an unsettling calmness, captivated the nation and law enforcement alike. However, as more details emerged, many of these confessions were discredited due to inconsistencies and lack of evidence, casting a shadow of doubt over his true culpability. In a small, dimly lit interrogation room, Henry Lee Lucas sat with a grim expression. His voice, eerily calm, recounted the dark deeds he claimed to have committed. The sheer number of his confessions left the nation in shock and disbelief. He admitted to killing his lover's disabled niece and an older woman he was employed to look after by stabbing them and desecrating their corpses. There were other murders he is also convicted of based on his confessions, but as most were discredited, by 8 others, they were all thought to be false confessions. It's believed Ottis, enraged over Henry's betrayal, went on a murderous rampage of his own. He was convicted of somewhere between 3 to 6 murders and, like Henry, had confessed to some murders that didn't add up. In any case, Ottis died in 1996. As the confessions piled up, investigators began to scrutinize the details. Many of Lucas's stories did not align with known facts, leading to skepticism about the veracity of his claims. It became clear that while he had undoubtedly committed heinous crimes, the true extent of his actions might never be fully known. Despite his chilling confessions, a cloud of doubt hung over Henry's claims. Investigators, sifting through the tangled web of stories, found many inconsistencies. The truth, it seemed, was as elusive as justice itself. Despite the confusion surrounding his confessions, Henry Lee Lucas was found guilty of several murders. However, only a few were confirmed with solid evidence, leaving a lingering question about the true scale of his crimes. His convictions brought some closure to the families of the victims, but doubts about other potential crimes remained. Guilty of murder, Henry Lee Lucas's fate was sealed with the swing of the gavel. Yet, for every conviction, there were countless unanswered questions, each a dark shadow over the pursuit of justice. Henry was sentenced to death for his crimes, a stark end for a life filled with violence and turmoil. However, in 1998, his death sentence was commuted to life in prison, sparking debates about the justice system and the true nature of his guilt. Sentenced to death, the ultimate penalty for a life drenched in blood. But fate intervened, and Henry's sentence was reduced to life imprisonment. A twist in the tale, leaving many to ponder the complexities of justice. In prison, Henry Lee Lucas underwent a transformation. Claiming to have found religion, he became a model prisoner, adhering to rules and engaging in religious activities. His behavior contrasted sharply with the monstrous image painted by his past, adding another layer of complexity to his character. Behind bars, a transformation. Henry Lee Lucas, the infamous killer, now a model prisoner. In the quiet of his cell, he found solace in religion, a stark contrast to his violent past. Lucas may have been the bad apple, But the general view of the people was that the Texas Rangers involved in the case weren't that clean themselves. It's believed they had facilitated false confessions from Lucas in exchange for free meals to close out some of their other cases. It's believed the Rangers had shared information with Lucas, enabling him to make these confessions, having knowledge only the perpetrator would. In the worst case, their interrogations weren't even documented. He was known to have confessed to some 100, or as some sources would have it, 600 cases, earning the nickname the Confession Killer. His confessions were in fact investigated, and it was concluded that it was highly implausible Lucas had committed these murders. Lucas later recanted his testimony and admitted to only killing his mother. However, he was found guilty of murdering his mother in 1960 and 2 others, including Deborah Jackson in 1983. In my opinion, it's possible to believe he would be capable of the other unsolved cases, but for the fact the evidence didn't add up. It's believed he repented and gave his life to Christ, becoming a good Christian. He became the model prisoner. At 64 years old, in 2001, Lucas died of congestive heart failure and was buried in a cemetery in Huntsville, Texas. The story of Henry Lee Lucas illustrates the devastating effects of childhood abuse and neglect, emphasizing the importance of compassion, support, and nurturing in preventing the creation of a fractured individual. It serves as a stark reminder of the need for societal vigilance in protecting and nurturing the vulnerable, to break the cycle of violence and transform lives for the better.